Tonight on NewsCenter, President Park will travel to Iran with a huge business delegation. Seoul's top office hopes the trip will boost bilateral economic ties, especially following the lifting of international sanctions on Tehran earlier this year. The latest international sanctions on North Korea seem to be taking effect. South Korea's intelligence agency reveals some 20 North Korean restaurants in other countries have shut down. And the Korean government has been rolling out various measures to breathe life back into the ailing economy. Today, ways for SMEs to create jobs for the youth. The road to Rio. Join in the Olympic fever 100 days out. Landmark monuments in major cities around the world will light up to mark the day. And in Seoul, the N Tower in Brazilian colors. NewsCenter begins right now. It's 9 in Washington, 2 in London, and 10 on a Wednesday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. President Park embarks on a historic state visit to Iran this weekend. It's highly significant because, one, she'll become the first ever South Korean president to make the trip, and two, it'll open a new horizon not only on the diplomatic front, but business and economic fronts as well. First, our Song Ji-sun with a preview of the Korean leader's state visit to Tehran.
The last blue ocean of the Middle East. That's how Korea sees Iran in terms of business opportunities. The oil-rich country is expected to grow at an annual pace of 6% after sanctions were lifted in January this year. Korea is among the dozens of countries seeking to differentiate itself in the Iranian market and make the most of the abundant business potential there, in addition to normalizing bilateral trade relations.
We're seeking to bring trade and investment back to where it was before sanctions were imposed on Iran in order to create a new business boom in the Middle East. Another goal is for Korea to play a larger part in Iran's infrastructure projects as the country rebuilds its economy.
President Park will be joined by the largest business delegation to ever accompany her on an overseas trip. The group will attend a business forum and a market with local buyers. President Park will also be seeking to take diplomatic relations to the next level when she meets with President Hassan Rouhani. It will be their first summit since the two countries established diplomatic ties in 1962. The two leaders are expected to discuss a range of regional and global issues, including North Korea. President Park will also seek to diversify bilateral cooperation in areas like health, culture, and ICT.
Diplomatic relations between the two countries have been stalled due to the international sanctions on Iran, but this summit will help lay the groundwork for advancing bilateral relations and cooperation between them.
President Park is also arranging a meeting with Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, which could help set the stage for stronger ties between Seoul and Tehran. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, as just mentioned, one of the main goals of President Park's visit to Iran will be reestablishing trade ties with that country. And some of Korea's industry leaders are traveling with her to make the best impression there and tap into the Iranian market. Our Kwon Jang-ho with the details.
A landmark deal led by the U.S. was reached with Iran and the international community last year, opening roads and possibilities for Iran and other countries, including Korea. Iran was one of Korea's biggest trade partners in the region before the U.S.-led sanctions came into effect in 2010. Under pressure from the international community, Korea limited its business with the Persian state, and trade plunged over the years. Now that there is a chance to revive that connection, Korea is wasting no time by sending some of its biggest industry players. Top representatives from several branches of Samsung and Hyundai, such as Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor, will be present, as well as the heads of both major Korean airlines, Korean Air and Asiana. Chairman of telecommunications giant SK and one of the richest men in Korea, Choi Tae-won, will also be attending, along with the CEO of POSCO, the world's fourth largest steelmaker. Altogether, representatives from 38 conglomerates, 146 SMEs, and 52 public institutions and hospitals, making up a group of some 500 people, will accompany President Park in her visit to Iran. They will seek opportunities that come from a country with a population of 80 million people, the second largest in the Middle East after Egypt. And now that sanctions have been lifted, their GDP is expected to jump from less than 2% to almost 6% this year, and even further in the years ahead. Korea has been suffering from severe falling exports and slow growth, so re-establishing ties with an old trade partner is seen as a ready-made chance to help reinvigorate a deepening sluggish economy. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Creating jobs for young people and women has always been high on the agenda of the Park Geun-hye administration. There's been a number of attempts to tackle this issue. Today, the government rolled out measures with a focus on resolving the mismatch in the labor market. Our Hwang Ji-hye zooms in on this part of the nation's plan to revamp the ailing economy.
The Korean government is gearing up to take on the role of job coordinator, announcing a fresh set of measures to support job creation for young people and women. The government said Wednesday it will designate a special employment day to connect job seekers and corporations.
At the nation's 17 innovation centers, we will hold an Employment Day event every month. We will also hold other job fairs in designated industries and promote projects connecting companies and undergraduates. Through these events, we aim to facilitate employment for 40,000 job seekers this year.
The government also plans to provide financial support to young people to encourage them to take jobs at smaller firms. A majority of young people in Korea pin their hopes on landing a job at a large conglomerate like Hyundai or Samsung because smaller-sized companies offer lower wages. Part of the government's plan is to give young people cash incentives of up to $5,000 if they sign up to work at a small or medium-sized company for a minimum of 2 years. Still, experts say the measures are not really hitting the core issue of increasing the kinds of jobs that young people are hoping to land.
Because most of these policies focusing on reducing the wage gaps in the labor market between large companies and small to middle-sized companies and the supply-demand mismatch. But it's not still sufficient for the new job creation.
The government's plan also includes measures to raise the female labor participation rate by allowing women workers to take a portion of their maternity leave while they're pregnant. Experts add, though, the key lies in expanding childcare facilities not just at public institutions but within private companies, as women experience disruptions in their careers mostly due to childcare responsibilities. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus now to the nation's political realm, the final parliamentary session of the 19th Assembly appears to be gaining momentum. Today, the top 3 in-house parties fixed some key dates to get going with crucial agenda and vowed to get a slew of pending bills passed by next month. Meanwhile, the newly minted minor opposition People's Party elected a new floor leader and chief policymaker. Our parliamentary correspondent, Kim Young-gil.
The deputy floor leaders of the ruling Saenuri Party, the main opposition Minju Party of Korea, and the minor People's Party agreed to hold a plenary session on May 19th and promised to make the most out of April's extra session.
Parliamentary committees will meet next week for discussion of important bills. We will meet again on May 4th to finalize on what key bills are crucial for passage.
Our party will prioritize on 2 things: extending the investigation period of the Special Parliamentary Committee on the Sewol-ho ferry disaster and passing a bill to promote youth employment.
It is the 19th National Assembly's duty to pass as many bills as possible. The People's Party will cooperate on any bills that the 2 leading parties have agreed on.
The 3 parties will mainly focus on a bill that will lift regulations on specialized industries to boost regional development. The bill aims to increase employment opportunities and expand investment through deregulation and tax benefits. However, it is uncertain whether the opposition bloc will allow the passage of bills backed by the ruling party, such as the labor reform bills and a service industry promotion bill. The opposition claims that the former will allow easier layoffs, while the latter will lead to the rapid privatization of the medical sectors. Meanwhile, the splinter People's Party elected Park Ji-won as new floor leader on Wednesday, as well as the party's new chief policymaker Kim Sung-sik. Park is a liberal bigwig and a longtime supporter of former President Kim Dae-jung. He left the Minju Party of Korea in January and joined the People's Party in early March and won a fourth term in the April 13th general election. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Dozens of North Korean restaurants abroad have either shut down or suspended business in recent weeks amid growing international pressure on the isolated state. South Korea's intelligence agency revealed its findings in parliament today. Not only that, Seoul is aware that Pyongyang is ready to conduct a fifth nuclear test any minute as preparations have been complete. All it needs is North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's go sign. Our Park Ji-won has more on the reclusive state's latest as assessed by the South Korean government.
Amid growing threats from North Korea, the National Assembly's Intelligence Committee held a meeting on Wednesday with the attendance of the nation's intelligence agency chief Lee Byung-ho. During a closed-door meeting that lasted about 2 hours, the NIS Chief told lawmakers that the South Korean intelligence agency estimates that North Korea has already completed preparations for its fifth nuclear test, which could take place any time now.
Since the regime is already equipped with nuclear materials and a test site, another nuclear test wouldn't incur a lot of additional costs for North Korea. So the test is a matter of political judgment rather than being a matter of money.
Compared to a nuclear test, it is substantially more expensive to carry out a missile test for North Korea, such as a recently tested submarine-launched ballistic missile, because the North still lacks related technology and necessary components to successfully launch rockets. According to the NIS, international sanctions recently imposed on the North are already taking a toll on the regime, especially in shipping, tourism, and finance areas. Some 20 branches of North Korea's state-run restaurants in countries like China and the United Arab Emirates have closed down or suspended business indefinitely.
Individuals or groups listed on the sanctions are changing their names and forging export and import documents to smuggle banned products into North Korea. They are depending on diverse illegal means, such as accounts under false names or sending money by means of mules.
Regarding Pyongyang's upcoming party congress scheduled to take place on May 6th, the intelligence agency said North Korea has strengthened its control on its people since late February in preparation for the event. The tight grip has caused growing discontent among party officials and the general public, as they are either demanded to pay fees or forced to assume diverse service roles. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And that Workers' Party Congress has been set for May 6th. It'll be the first such conference in 36 years, and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is expected to use the gathering to cement his leadership and to formally adopt his dual-track policy of pushing for economic development and nuclear weapons capability at the same time. Our correspondent in charge of North Korean affairs, Connie Kim, has more on the North's rare and potentially significant gathering.
When North Korea holds its 7th ruling Workers' Party Congress on May 6th in Pyongyang, young leader Kim Jong-un will be aiming to solidify his grip on power. The party congress will be the first in 36 years, and the last one was held while Kim's grandfather and the country's founder Kim Il-sung was still in power. Although the specific itinerary is unknown, the party is expected to lay out a blueprint for its economy and defense, discuss long-term projects, and set party lines. Experts are also keeping an eye out for reshuffling within the party, inclusive the North's economic development plans.
The degree of personal reshuffling within the party will be closely watched, as well as how Kim presents his pursuit of Pyongyang policy of simultaneous nuclear and economic development.
Kim Jong-un, who came to power after the death of his father in late 2011, is also expected to cement his position as supreme leader, just as his grandfather Kim Il-sung did in the Fifth Conference. Since the North announced its plans to hold the event back in October last year, the North has been mobilizing its citizens to prepare for the rare Congress and has been holding rubber stamp elections to select delegates for the event. 177 delegates from 118 countries, including China and Russia, attended the Sixth Party Congress in October 1980. This year's convention is expected to be a mostly domestic event, with few foreign guests attending given the level of North Korea's isolation following its recent nuclear missile provocations. However, in an effort to promote the gathering, the North has reportedly allowed some foreign press to cover the event, which is expected to last 4 to 5 days. Given the mounting international pressure on North Korea for its recent nuclear provocations, the event will be closely watched for any indications of new policy directives or messages for the North Korean people. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says North Korea has built a half-size mock-up of Seoul's presidential office of Cheongwade at a firing range in what appears to be preparations for a live fire drill. We're also finding out today that an analysis of rocket debris from the North launch in February confirms the rocket was not aimed at putting a satellite into orbit as Pyongyang claims, but a test for an intercontinental ballistic missile. Our national defense correspondent Kim Hyun-bin has more on these findings.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said on Wednesday that North Korea is planning a large-scale artillery exercise targeting a replica of South Korea's presidential office that has been built in the outskirts of Pyongyang. The drill is expected to take place before the regime's Workers' Party of Korea Congress, scheduled for next week. The JCS added that the regime has deployed some 30 heavy artillery pieces to the area, and the move is intended to tighten internal unity and instill animosity towards the South. Meanwhile, South Korea's defense ministry said on Wednesday that there is proof that the long-range rocket launched by North Korea in early February was actually an intercontinental ballistic missile, and not a means to put a satellite into orbit, as Pyongyang said. Analysis of debris retrieved in South Korean waters shortly after the launch shows that the missile lacked an acoustic blanket and other crucial mechanisms that should have served to protect the satellite through the rocket's flight. The finding contradicts the North's claim that the purpose of the rocket was to send an Earth observation satellite into orbit. But refuting the regime's claim at the time of the launch was difficult, as both the rocket carrying a satellite and a ballistic missile have virtually the same launching technology. The satellite Pyongyang has put into orbit has not sent any signals since it was launched, and experts say that the launch was a cover-up to test an ICBM. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the foreign ministers of South Korea and China sat down for talks in Beijing, and topping the agenda was North Korea's ongoing provocations. Of course, that includes a very possible fifth nuclear test, possibly imminent. The meeting was held on the sidelines of a regional security conference in the Chinese capital, where Pyongyang once again is expected to dominate the discussions. Here's our Kim Min-ji with more.
North Korea's nuclear and missile threats stand as the most important and urgent issue between South Korea and China. That's what Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se stressed during bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Beijing on Wednesday. Tensions have been running high on the peninsula since Pyongyang conducted its fourth nuclear test earlier this year, as well as launching several missiles. On top of that, many in Seoul say a fifth nuclear test appears imminent, ahead of a rare party congress to take place early next month. Minister Yoon highlighted the importance of cooperation between the two countries to stop the regime from carrying out a fifth nuclear test and for the thorough implementation of UN Security Council sanctions. The bilateral talks come on the sidelines of the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia. Minister Yoon will give a keynote speech on Thursday to call for closer cooperation from the 26 members of the forum in preventing further North Korean provocations. It's the first time Seoul is sending its top diplomat to the event since it became a member 10 years ago. Yoon will also sit down for talks with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on the same day. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
So how should the international community deal with North Korea to curb its continuous threats? What kinds of collaborations need to be made, and what are the challenges? Well, leading minds in regional security issues gathered in Seoul today to discuss just that. Our Kwon So-ah digs in.
Victor Cha, a U.S. expert on North Korea, said at a South Korean think tank's annual forum in Seoul Wednesday he won't be surprised if Pyongyang conducts a ballistic missile launch or nuclear test before May 6th, and shared his thoughts on what needs to be done then.
I think China needs to stop unconditionally all fuel and coal, fuel into North Korea, and stop the import of coal from North Korea. And I think that the United States has to move to secondary sanctioning of third country companies that are doing any business with North Korea, including Chinese companies.
Cha stressed the power of the UN Security Council Resolution 2270, but that 80% of it depends on China's implementation. An interesting point, he added, was this.
If the North Koreans do a fifth nuclear test, I don't think that reflects the ineffectiveness of the sanctions.
This as he sees the fifth nuke test as a desire to develop its nuclear program before its Congress meeting, rather than a defiance to the world. If the test does happen, Cha says multilateral meetings are essential, including one with Seoul and Beijing.
I think there's increasing willingness on the Chinese side to be open to more trilateral dialogue with the United States and the ROK.
Wang Dong, a Chinese expert, agrees to a certain extent.
Well, I think, frankly, the six-party talks is just a framework. It's a label. Personally, I don't see any problem of doing that. But of course, always keep the door open to North Korea. If they change mind, they're always welcome.
This is why the expert says Seoul and Washington's rejection of Pyongyang's foreign minister's deal to halt nuclear tests if the two allies stop their joint military drills was a missed opportunity.
The right thing to do is really to accept, not reject the DPRK proposal, because then you will put the North Korea in a spot, right? Then it has to say whether it's wanted to move on or it's gonna move away. If it's move away from the proposal itself put forward, then of course it will lose credibility, right?
This reflects Beijing's dual-track approach on its longtime ally, a no-go for South Korea and the U.S. at this point. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, the South Korean government has made it crystal clear time and time again that in the Seoul-Japan agreement, landmark agreement on comfort women last year, it does not include the removal of a comfort women statue standing in downtown Seoul. Well, Tokyo's chief diplomat, one of its chief officials, have said that their interpretation is different from that. Our Kim Mo-geun has the details.
Korea rebutted Japan's Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Koichi Hagiura's comments, claiming that the removal of the statue symbolizing former Korean sex slaves in Seoul was part of the so-called comfort woman deal agreed upon last December. An official from Seoul's foreign ministry said that the bilateral deal is not something that could be interpreted arbitrarily and stressed that the contents of the agreement are exactly what the foreign ministers of the two countries announced publicly last year. The official also claimed that the statue has been voluntarily installed by a private organization and that it should not be influenced by either government. Earlier at a press conference on Wednesday, Hagiura said that the significance of the agreement was to resolve Japan's wartime sexual slavery issue once and for all. Thus, the removal of the comfort woman statue in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul was part of the deal. He stressed that both sides should take responsibility in its implementation. Hagiura's comments come a day after Korean President Park Geun-hye claimed that removing the statue was not even mentioned in the agreement. Kim Mo-geun, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington have again declared, let's go together, this time to space. The allies inked a framework agreement today that paves the way for the two to work together on Earth science, possible use of the International Space Station, and the future exploration of Mars, among other space missions. Our Kim Ji-yeon has more on the South Korea-U.S. journey into space.
South Korea and the United States have signed a space cooperation agreement, paving the way for greater collaboration between the allies in their exploration of outer space. The pact was signed by Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and U.S. Ambassador to Korea Mark Lippert on Wednesday during their second civil space dialogue. The agreement sets forth the terms and conditions for potential bilateral cooperation in the exploration and use of outer space for peaceful purposes in areas of common interest. During his congratulatory remarks, Foreign Minister Yoon said the agreement aims to put space technology into use to solve real-world problems.
Rather than using the agreement as a tool for zero-sum competition, we would like to use it to jointly address challenges facing the international community and enhance human dignity.
Ambassador Lippert said the agreement would help further broaden and strengthen the evolving alliance between South Korea and the United States.
Our collaboration in space, that will be dramatically enhanced by this framework agreement, promises to expand boundaries of knowledge, inspire innovation, develop new technology, and will be a driver of economic growth.
While praising the constructive use of space technology for peaceful purposes, Yoon also criticized North Korea for using the technology to further its weapons development program, including its recent test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Well, the first Summer Olympic Games to take place in South America only has a little over 3 months left, 100 days to be exact. That means athletes participating in the global sporting event only has 100 days to prepare for the moment. And marking the 100 days until the Olympics is scheduled to kick off in August 5th through the 21st, major cities, including Seoul, turned on the colors of representing the host country, Brazil, on their most representative landmarks. Our Shin Se-min has more.
The countdown begins. Only 100 days before the Rio 2016 Olympics, and major cities around the world, including London, New York, Athens, and Tokyo, are lit in green and yellow. And one of Korea's milestone landmarks, Seoul's N Tower, was also dressed in the colors representing the country hosting the global event. This year's Rio Olympics is the largest of its kind, with the Olympic organizers expected to host some 10,500 athletes from 206 countries, where they'll take part in 42 sporting events with 306 gold medals at stake. With just 100 days left until the 31st World Sporting Competition, athletes in South Korea are in full gears to finish in top 10. Vowing to perform to their fullest, the head of the Korean Olympic Committee, Kim Jong-haeng, said the national athletes would do their best at the world competition. Some of the most popular events where Korean athletes are expected to dominate in the Olympics include archery, wrestling, shooting, judo, badminton, and fencing. And according to Dutch sports data analysis firm's projection, Gracenote, Team Korea is likely to do just that, finishing well by winning 12 golds, 5 silver, and 11 bronze. Team Korea has a record of making it to the top 10 list consecutively since the Athens Olympic 2004 until the most recent London Summer Olympics in 2012, where the team came in 5th with 13 golds. In particular, Korea has been leading the discipline of archery with 19 golds in the quadrennial competition. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And this just coming in, Korea has confirmed the second Zika infection case in a man who recently visited the Philippines. Korea's Center for Disease Control and Prevention said Wednesday that a 20-year-old man tested positive for the virus. Now, the man, he was on a vacation in the Philippines for 5 days starting April 10th and first showed symptoms of a cold last week. The center says that the man got a mosquito bite during his stay there. Well, the frontrunners in the U.S. presidential primaries edged closer to victory Tuesday with large wins in the U.S. Northeast. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me. Now, Bruce, give us a quick breakdown of Tuesday.
It was basically a blowout, Kanyang. On the Republican side, businessman Donald Trump ran away with it, won all 5 states he was competing in. On the Democratic side, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, she took 4 of 5 states, so for both big delegate hauls on Tuesday.
Well, the primaries are now halfway done, pretty much. What kind of a tone has this race taken on?
Sure. Well, on one side, you have the leaders. You have Trump and Clinton, and they're both saying this is already in the bag. But still a bit of hope on the opposition side. They say it's far from over, and there are enough delegates left on both sides to prevent outright nominations. But Trump has said a contested Republican convention is less likely with his wins on Tuesday over Senator Ted Cruz and Ohio Governor John Kasich.
It's over. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. These two guys cannot win. There's no path.
Clinton struck a more positive tone after wins over Bernie Sanders, saying regardless of the outcome, the party needs to stick together.
Because whether you support Senator Sanders or you support me, there's much more that unites us than divides us.
It's possible now Sanders may soften criticism of Clinton, considering she's likely to become the party nominee. Trump's challengers, on the other hand, show no signs of backing off. They may have one chance left to prevent an outright nomination if they beat him in the Indiana primary next week. Japanese carmaker Mitsubishi says orders at home have fallen by half since it admitted last week to cheating fuel economy tests on several models sold in Japan. The scandal deepened a day ago when the company said it believes that for 25 years it used fuel economy tests that didn't comply with Japanese regulations.
I would first like to deeply apologize to our customers and involved parties for the inappropriate fuel economy test methods we carried out on our vehicles.
The company has not given an earnings forecast for this financial year, given uncertainty over the fallout from the scandal.
Bruce, so how is Mitsubishi addressing this scandal? Were other countries affected by this?
That's a great question. Right now, it's investigating employees to see who may have been involved. It's also going back in time and checking tests to see how many models were affected. As far as other countries, right now it appears that these cheating tests just affected cars sold in Japan.
All right, we'll have to wait and see how much of an impact it will have on global sales of Mitsubishi and safety as well. All right, Bruce, thank you so much for that coverage.
No problem.
Well, nothing too out of the ordinary in terms of the weather here in Seoul today, but you never know what or when Mother Nature will throw a curveball, so let's head straight over to our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center. Now, Ji-hyun, not much to note about the weather today, but what I can say is that we had much better air quality.
Right, Kanyang, the whole nation had normal to good air quality today, but a lot of people are suffering from hay fever these days, which causes runny nose, watery and itchy eyes.
Right, tough time for those with seasonal allergies flaring up this time of the year. But what about the weather? What does the weather have in store for us tomorrow?
But for today, it rained quite heavily in the southern regions throughout the day today, and it's going to rain until tomorrow morning with up to 40 millimeters in the Gyeongsangdo provinces, while Seoul will have another partly sunny day tomorrow. And temperatures will be similar to today's, with lows kicking off at 12 degrees Celsius here in Seoul and Busan, while Daegu will start out at 8 degrees Celsius. And as for the highs, upper regions will see the mercury hovering in the 20s, with Seoul getting up to 22 degrees Celsius, but much breezier over in the southern provinces, getting up to 18 degrees Celsius in Daegu and 15 for Busan. Similar weather conditions will persist for the rest of the week in the capital, but on Saturday morning, light rain is in the forecast, and starting next week, lows will jump to the mid-teens. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that is our broadcast on this Wednesday night. I'm Moon Gun-young. Thank you as always for staying with us. And we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.